Hey guys, Solar here, back again with another top 10 video, and today we'll be counting down my top 10 favorite action figures of 2020. So without further ado, let's get into it. Yes, once again the moment of truth has finally arrived, because today we'll be talking about my top 10 favorite action figures of 2020. But before we get into all of that, I did make a few rules for myself as I was putting this list together. So with that being said, let's go over that quick, shall we? Let's. Rule number 1, gotta own it. Pretty self-explanatory, but if I don't own a figure, I don't know how good or bad it may be. So, as good or bad as the Marvel Legends Retro Spidey is or isn't, I don't have that figure, so it's automatically ineligible to be on this list. Rule number 2, had to come out in 2020. Again, pretty self-explanatory, but some people like to put some stragglers, as I like to call it, from the previous year on their top 10 list for the year after, and that's cool. I have nothing against that. However, that's not my speed. It's not how I roll, because as much as I like the Marvel Legends Doctor Doom from the Super Skrull wave, I consider that a 2019 release, because in my opinion, enough people got it for it to be considered a 2019 release, even though it was slated for 2020. Rule number 3, how much enjoyment did I get out of the figures that I decided to put on this list? Did I go back to them frequently? How long have I had them? How much did I want them? How hardcore did I try and hunt and track them down? You know, standard stuff like that. And rule number 4, try and have as much variety as possible. And of course, I'm gonna break this rule because at the end of the day, I like what I like, and sometimes you gotta bend the rules to put what you really like out there. So with that being said, before we get into the top 10, I do have some honorable mentions here that I would like to talk about briefly. Starting from left to right, got the DC Multiverse Devastator. Really like that figure, but he's just too freaking small, man. He could have been a little bit taller. Chunk of plastic for the price, but just a little short in my opinion. Next up, we get the Diamond Select Iron Giant. Awesome figure, but a little bit light in terms of weight and a little bit loose in some areas, and overall feels a little bit on the fragile side, and that ain't Italian either. Next up, we got the Diamond Select Marvel Select Disney Store exclusive Taskmaster, which I reviewed this past week. It's a little bit too new for me to consider putting it on the list. That and the head popping off is an issue, so couldn't put him on the list because of that. After that, we have the Disney Toy Box Venom, which is one of many sentimental pieces that I have throughout this video, because not only was this a birthday present from my aunt, who I love and respect very much, but I got it the day my very close friend Laura passed away. So it's a very kind of memorable figure, and it was the first figure I reviewed when I came back after taking a bit of a hiatus. I needed to take a break to kind of wrap my head around what just happened when all that went down. So you guys pretty much know how that goes sometimes. Next up, though, we have the G.I. Joe Classified Series, Cobra Commander, and Snake Eyes. Love these figures, but I'm not that big of a Joe guy. I like G.I. Joe, I love the cartoon, but it's not my main thing. But this line is pretty freaking gangbusters for just coming out. I think once they get the distribution and some of the looseness and some of the joints fixed, this is going to be one of the best action figure lines in years. I mean, it already is pretty close to being that, but considering it's a brand I'm not 100% into, that's a lot coming from me. That and Cobra Commander and Snake Eyes are what got me into G.I. Joe when I was a wee lad, way back in the early 2000s when McDonald's had a set of toys. I remember the first 2 toys I got out of that was Snake Eyes on a motorcycle and a Cobra Commander with a backpack that turned into some kind of crazy disc launcher that went on your wrist. But that's mumbo jumbo at this point. And last, but certainly not least, as far as the honorable mentions go, we got the DC Multiverse Hellbats, because that thing is one of the figures that got me started in the action figure review business again, because, well, I took another hiatus after October of 2019, and it took me quite a while to get my groove back, and that was one of the figures that helped me get back into said groove. Well, that and the madness, because I literally had jack crap else to do. But with all of that being said, let's get into the top 10, kicking things off with number 10 spot. Kicking things off at the number 10 spot, we have the McFarlane Toys Warhammer 40k Necron Warrior. And this is not going to be the first nor the last time you're going to see McFarlane Toys on this list, I assure you. But this guy does everything right that a spindly robotic character needs done right in action figure form, and does some things that I think the Diamond Select Iron Giant didn't do quite as well. Much better. It's a very strong and sturdy figure for having a slim and slender character design. Has awesome paint, awesome sculpt, a really awesome gun. I mean, look at that thing. It's as big as he is. And honestly, I think you could fudge this into your DC Multiverse collection as some kind of crazy Metallo if you really wanted to. Sticking right to my word at the number 9 spot, we got the McFarlane Toys Doom Eternal Marauder. Now, I'ma tell you what, being a fine connoisseur of death metal and things with skulls on them, this definitely was a figure that worked for me, and it also gave me a bit of a Mythic Legions fix, considering there wasn't a whole lot of Mythic Legions releases in 2020. Another reason 2020 sucked. But with that being said, this figure is absolutely fantastic, and if you wanted to fudge it into your Mythic Legions display, I think it would work really well. He's got an awesome infernal fire axe and a really sick sculpt and paintwork as part of the course for McFarlane Toys. Coming in at the number 8 spot is our last entry from McFarlane Toys, for a while anyways. What can I say, Todd and his crew are doing a killer job with figures this year. I put these things on these lists for a reason, guys, but with that being said, at the number 8 spot is the DC Multiverse Batman Who Laughs. Now, I decided to put both the standard release and the Sky Tyrant variant from the Merciless wave in the same spot, because it's essentially the same figure, just with a few different parts. And while I do really like these figures, I wish one of them at least came with the skull cane he is known for having in the comics. But with that being said, this is an awesome figure, and I think either one is worthy of being in anyone's collection, especially if they are a fan of the Dark Knight's Metal story arc. Coming in at the number 7 spot is the first figure Hasbro has to offer us, with the Marvel Legends Venompool Wave movie, say it with me now, Venom. And this is a figure I am super stoked to finally have, even though we didn't have to wait that long for it, to be honest. A couple of years maybe, which is more than I can say for some Marvel Legends releases, which we should have gotten many years ago. But I digress, because this guy has a brand new body sculpt, which I am super excited to see reused for a classic Eddie Brock Venom. If they decide to do that, I hope they do, slap it on a Spidey retro card, and it's a done deal, because this figure is absolutely freaking fantastic. Coming in at the number 6 spot is the NECA Toys Kong, the 8th wonder of the world. And sadly, this is the only NECA Toys entry on this list, but with that being said, Kong does have a lot of nostalgia for me, because it was my first horror movie I ever saw as a kid. Not to mention, this figure captures the likeness of the classic 1930s film dang near perfectly, with its awesome sculpt and paintwork, which is just to be expected by NECA Toys at this point, right? And bonus points for being an awesome monkey figure, because y'all know I love me some awesome monkey figures. Coming in at the number 5 spot is probably the figure with the most nostalgic value, at least to me anyways, and that's going to be the Hasbro Transformers Studio Series Voyager class Megatron, based off his appearance in the 2007 movie, the first of the Michael Bay Transformers films, and this may come as a surprise to some of you because I don't exactly cover Transformers on this channel. Yeah, I've done a couple of videos in the past, but they're not like Marvel Legends or DC Multiverse where I do them quite frequently, mostly because they are a pain in the butt to transform, and this guy is definitely no exception to that rule. But with that being said, this thing is super sexy between that awesome silver paint job and the amazing sculpt. This is the most movie-accurate Megatron I think we've ever gotten from the Studio Series, and in fact, I think it's the best Megatron we've ever gotten from the Studio Series, albeit I wish he came with some more accessories, and maybe they could have done something about the gaps on his lower arms. Other than that, I really have no gripes about this figure. It's just that frickin' wicked. Coming in at the number 4 spot is the Hasbro Marvel Legends Cosmic Ghost Rider. And for those of you who remember my top 10 Marvel Legends video from a couple of weeks ago, you remember me stating that this guy's literally like Space Kook from Scooby-Doo blazing straight out of hell on his Cosmic Hell cycle. And that couldn't be any more true now than it was then. This thing is freaking fantastic. And not only is this an awesome figure, this is one of the few figures I was hunting down pretty hardcore when it first came out. And also one of the few figures on this list that got me back into doing action figure reviews. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for figures like this and a couple others on this list. Even though I will admit this figure does have quite the set of birth-giving hips on him, if I do say so myself. Coming in at the number 3 spot is the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman White Knight Azrael. And not only does this figure mark the return of McFarlane Toys on this list, he also marks the beginning of the end. The top 3, the final countdown, will we make it? Yes, we will, but first we need to talk about this Azrael right here. And let me tell you what, man, when I saw this guy revealed at Toy Fair last year, I knew he had the potential to be on the top 10 figures of the year list, but I wasn't quite sure where he was going to fall. And he beat out some pretty heavy hitters like Cosmic Ghost Rider, for crying out loud. Who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. But between the awesome sculpt and paintwork, which is just part of the course for McFarlane Toys at this point, right? That awesome sword, this guy may potentially be one of my favorite DC figures I currently own. And let me tell you what, I own a ton of really awesome DC figures at this point. So with that being said, if you have not picked this guy up yet, I highly suggest you do so. You do not want to miss out on this guy. Even if you're not familiar with the story arc, he's definitely one worth checking out because he is just that freaking good. Coming in at the number 2 spot is the Hasbro Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure, say it with me now, Venom Pool. Because despite the fact that this is a Build-A-Figure, it is one of the most affordable Build-A-Figures Hasbro's ever given us, clocking in at about the $25 to $50 price point, because when you really break it down, you only needed 5 figures to build this guy, which puts each BAF piece at about the $5 to $10 price point, which is on the cheaper end of the spectrum as far as Build-A-Figures go. Top that off with the fact that this guy comes with a few accessories, which is also uncommon for Build-A-Figures, as well as the awesome sculpt and paint job he's got going for him. This is possibly one of, if not the best, Build-A-Figure Hasbro's ever given us since they brought back the Marvel Legends line almost 10 years ago. Even though mine has a stupid QC issue with the left leg, it kind of pops off when you lift it up. I don't know, maybe I'll have to do some weird voodoo hoodoo magic to fix that, or just say screw it and buy a replacement leg on the secondary market. But with all that being said, it is finally time to wrap things up with the number 1 spot. Who's it gonna be? Drum roll, please. And finally, wrapping things up with the number 1 spot, my favorite action figure of 2020 is going to be none other than the McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. This one should have been pretty obvious if you paid any attention to either the URL to this video or any, and I mean almost any, of my other videos that I've posted on this channel throughout the past year, because this guy's been in dang near all of them, whether it was a size comparison or heck, he's even into the intro for the videos I post on this channel nowadays. So he is a pretty consistent member of the Overlord Productions crew, to say the very least. But on top of the fact that this guy is just a straight up awesome figure, he holds a lot of sentimental value to me because he was one of the figures that gave me the kick in the pants I needed to start posting content on a semi-consistent basis again, because for a time I was going through quite the emotional rut, was feeling quite down, quite depressed, just not myself. And it wasn't until around the time of the madness that I finally got my hands on this guy and decided, you know what? I think it's about time I got off my lazy butt and started posting content again. And since then, I've been posting videos on, again, a semi-consistent basis. We've had some dry spells here and there, but at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. But with all that being said, I'm 110% confident in saying that this is definitely my #1 favorite action figure of 2020. So, with all of that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 favorite action figures of 2020. Now, before I let you guys go, I wanted to touch base on something I've decided to add to the channel, something new, nothing crazy, but just something I wanted to point out in this video in particular, and that's going to be the Overlord Action Figure Hall of Fame. Now, this is going to be a subjective thing. It's not going to be the greatest action figures of all time. I do not have the credentials to confirm nor deny what those are or aren't, but this is just going to be a playlist on the channel showcasing some of my favorite pieces that I've reviewed over the past year, and at the end of the year when I do a top 10 action figures of said year video, I'm going to showcase the entries or nominees to said playlist. And for 2020, I've decided to put in these three fellas right here. Got the DC Multiverse Azrael, the Marvel Legends Venompool, and the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn, because these three guys right here symbolize what I think really solid action figures are. And again, this is solely based off of my opinion. Don't take it as this is the best stuff ever type of thing, because it's just my opinion at the end of the day. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave it a like, as well as hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know whenever I upload more content to the channel. Got plenty more reviews coming your way. Not sure if I'll get around to any more top 10 lists anytime soon. There are a few I'd like to do as far as action figures of 2020 lists go, but I need to acquire a few more things before I'm able to quote-unquote do that. So stay tuned for that, but most likely in the distant future. And with that said, also don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what your top 10 favorite action figures of 2020 are. And remember, this is my list. Chances are your list is going to be very much different from mine, so remember that before you go leaving stupid comments. Aight? Aight. And as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is. And until next time, I will catch you guys later.